It's great to have you both here. Bill, one thing that bothers me a little bit about this premise is, does one make a trend?
No, one definitely does not make a trend, and but it is a very powerful signal and message, Kelly, because it sends, it should be an important reminder for CEOs across the country, CEOs of startup companies, entrepreneurs, that they can't overstate their financial expectations in the hope of trying to lure investors to their companies at relatively high valuations. So it's incredibly important to be reminded of that. Of course, that's something they should already know.
It is, Marcus, and I wonder, in your experience, has it been difficult to do proper due diligence in healthcare companies?
Kelly, it's really important that we understand that in this case, the counts in which Elizabeth Holmes was found guilty were really defrauding the later investors, where she knew that she didn't have the capabilities that she claimed to have. For early stage investors, you're often investing in founders who don't have everything fully baked. And that's why I have to agree with Bill. I don't think this creates a trend, because I think Silicon Valley right now is at all-time highs in every single category when it comes to the kind of capital that's flowing into these funds, the returns that they're generating. And they're really going to just write this off as, one bad egg who fell astray, but there's hundreds of other great founders out there to continue to investing in.
So, Marcus, let me probe that a little bit more. Theranos and the founder were in Silicon Valley, but I suppose there's an argument that can be made that they weren't of Silicon Valley. In other words, a lot of the money they raised was not from the traditional venture capital and equity companies out there, though there were plenty who were invested in it. What is the long-term scar, if any, on Silicon Valley that comes out of this verdict? Or what is the long-term lesson for Silicon Valley?
The long-term lesson is definitely that we need to be aware that founders can't be taken at their word. That diligence is always a must-do, and we can never skip that step. It's our job as investors. We're managing other people's money. We have to be responsible for our investors' dollars, and we have to make sure that we're doing our diligence in these companies. But beyond that, there is no real thing that we need to be paying attention to, because at the end of the day, this is one founder amongst thousands of great early stage companies out there doing great work. And I think Silicon Valley continues to march on.
Bill, on that note, is the health space more difficult for investors to probe? A lot of the times when we talk about Silicon Valley, we're talking about technology. We're talking about VCs who are very well versed in that, who oftentimes, can use or do channel checks or talk to customers to figure out, what the use case is for cloud computing or something like that. But in this case, how closely would they have had to get into those labs in order to understand or see for themselves the health technology that was happening?
Well, Kelly, they absolutely could have talked to customers like CVS and Walgreens, who had started buying these machines and rolling out the machines, making them available, and to seeing whether they actually did what they said they were going to do. The problem is that, of course, people get caught up in the whirlwind of these incredible, charismatic leaders and all the publicity that comes along with it. Putting her on the cover of Inc. magazine and declaring her the next Steve Jobs is hard to resist. And so investors get caught up in it. They don't have time to do the kind of due diligence that you were just describing, although, of course, they should. And of course, there's so many other people, all those board members, those smart board members who are endorsing it, and the venture capital firms. And it just becomes too much to resist. I mean, we see it happening now with SPACs over and over again. We see it with Tesla and other high-flying, incredibly high-priced and high-valued companies that don't seem to have any ties to their actual financial performance, and it just gets impossible to resist. And this is unfortunately one example where it went wrong, one of many.